Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar regarding the recruitment for a new information technology director for Santa Barbara Superior Court. Hopefully everybody can see our image on the screen. You should have Superior Court of California, County of Santa Barbara, and 4 images and a state seal. If you're not able to see that, maybe you could use the chat function to advise us. There should be instructions on your screen. My name is Daryl Parker, and I'm the Court Executive Officer with Santa Barbara Superior Court. And with me today are Jim Brock, he's the current Information Technology Director, and Stephanie Robbins, who is our Human Resources Manager. I want to talk to you about our agenda for today. I've checked off this first item. Well, welcome, everybody. Here's what I'm going to go through. What are we looking for in an IT director for our court? I'm going to talk about what it's like to live and work in Santa Barbara County, talk about the court and different aspects of the court. Then I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Robbins, who's going to talk about the IT director position and the hiring process. And then Jim Brock is going to talk about the IT division as well, and then we'll leave it open for some questions and answers. So before I jump into what we're looking for in the IT director, I want to tell you that in preparation for this recruitment, I met with all the members of the IT staff in Santa Barbara Superior Court and asked all of them what they thought the skills and knowledge and abilities were that were essential for a successful IT director in this county. And then I synthesized all of their statements down to bullet points. And after speaking to all of them, I found a word cloud app, and I entered all of those descriptors into that app in order to come up with an image. And I'm going to try to get that up to you. For some reason, Jim, this is not.
1 second.
Okay.
I'm trying to scale.
Oh, there we go. I hope you can all see this. So this is a pretty good representation. You can't see all of the small words, but I'm going to go through this. I'll give you a second to digest that. Okay, and we're moving a little faster now. That's better. So let me talk about what I'm looking for and emphasize some of these points. You've noticed in there that communication came up as a big theme, and I don't think that surprises anybody in management that communication is important. But at this level, communication is important along a number of paths. Among the IT team themselves, so that everyone knows what's going on in the other areas of the operation. Across management, we have 8 managers in our organization: operational, Chief Financial Officer, IT, and Human Resources. They need to know what's going on in the IT world, and the IT director needs to know what they need as well. Among judicial leadership, so that the bench knows what's happening in the IT world, and we're getting feedback from judicial officers about what they need. Within the justice community, you'll hear about some initiatives that we're undertaking right now that require communication across our justice community. Across the state, those of you who are familiar with the Odyssey product of the Tyler Technologies, we're a part of that effort to implement that software, and communication among all those courts is important. Communication among IT directors, and then the user group and the Court Information Technology Management Forum in California. So that's a lot in communication, and that's why you see it emphasized so strongly. An IT director who is adaptable, willing to embrace new and emerging technologies, but also efficient. That just doesn't mean we're going to chase after the latest new shiny thing that comes on the market. This is one that I wrestled with, a familiarity with court operations, because at first I didn't think it was critical, because somebody might be able to have a strong technology background and management background. But it's strongly desirable that somebody have a familiarity with California court operations already. It just makes that transition a little easier. I'm looking for, this is a tough one, right? To use the word stable. But what I really mean is somebody who can handle a crisis without panicking and keep a cool head when things go wrong. We've had our share of earthquakes, fires, power outages, and floods. That I need somebody to be level-headed when those things come up. And then some of the points that came out in the IT staff qualities was development skills, web development, database development. You're going to see that business analytics is something that I'm very interested in. Strong project management skills, I think, are important. We have a number of initiatives we're undertaking at any given time. Diplomacy, which goes back to an ability to communicate among and between the different levels of court and among the different governmental agencies. Someone who's got a vision that will carry us into the future. This is the one that keeps me awake at night, security. And you'll see that we have some security projects, but data security and an IT director with familiarity with security systems and security infrastructure is really important. We deal with a lot of sensitive data and a lot of confidential data that just makes me nervous when we provide access on the web. But the IT director is also a manager of a division with real people in it, so a familiarity with human resources processes and an ability to motivate and reward employees for positive behavior or take action where necessary for those who are not in complete conformance with our expectations. An ability to liaison with justice partners and IT professionals around the state and country. And then some of the mundane stuff, an ability to track support contracts. You know, we're always signing some new maintenance agreement somewhere. And to make requisitions to buy new computers. I think I signed something today to buy a whole new series of CPUs for the pretrial division. The IT director will be called upon to make presentations at executive committee meetings and countywide judge meetings and among the staff. So persuasive presentation skills is emphasized. Someone who can build a team among the IT professionals working in that division, but also among the operational managers and supervisors. Someone who can motivate the staff, someone who's approachable, a leader. I think I covered efficient use of technology. You're going to see later when we talk a little bit about our mission, vision, and values that we value honesty. So I need an IT director who's going to tell me when things are going wrong as well as when they're going right so that we can avoid any problems that someone just wanting to deliver good news might create. So if things aren't going well, we need to know that as well. And then someone who's compassionate, someone who cares about the people in our organization and the public that we serve. So I want to talk for a second about, well, maybe more than a second, about Santa Barbara County. So here's a map of Santa Barbara County. And if you notice to the right of the screen, there's a large green area. The majority of Santa Barbara County is the Los Padres National Forest. The most populated areas are closer to the coast, with the centers of population being Santa Maria, the largest center of population in the north, nearest to San Luis Obispo County, and then Santa Barbara. And then we have communities of Lompoc, Buellton, Solvang, San Ynez, Gaviota, Goleta, Carpinteria in between. And Santa Barbara is a beautiful place to live. I live in the north part of the county, and I commute in 2 to 3 days a week along the coast. And the view on any given day, even when it's storming, is just breathtaking. And here's a picture of Stearns Wharf in Santa Barbara. This is a picture of the Santa Barbara Courthouse, which is a 150,000 square foot Spanish Moorish castle built in the 30s. This is where my main office is, and the IT director's office as well. It's just a stunning facility if you haven't been here. It's stunning if you have been here. Santa Barbara itself is a major employer, cultural center, and tourist destination. If you're not familiar with State Street, which is a major shopping and dining center in downtown Santa Barbara, it's just a beautiful place. It's, what is it, 2 blocks, Jim, from Stephanie, from here to State Street?
Yes.
So we work right in this community, which is just a great place to go have a lunch. It also has a lot of cultural events. There's an international film festival that takes place once a year, but there are a number of other festivals that happen throughout the year as well. North of Santa Barbara is the town of Goleta, and then in the San Ynez Valley, there's a community, and then there's this cute Danish community called Solvang. We have a court location in this facility as well. The city of Lompoc has two major employers, probably more, county government and the hospital that's opened up there as well. But Vandenberg Air Force Base and the federal penitentiary are located there. If you're not aware, Santa Barbara County has 3 missions inside of its borders, one in Santa Barbara, this one at the La Purísima mission, and in the San Ynez Valley, the Mission San Ynez, which is directly across from our courthouse in Solvang. And then the city of Santa Maria is the northernmost city in Santa Barbara County. It's an agricultural community. There's, I emphasize this small community. It's an unincorporated area of Santa Barbara County called Orcutt, mostly because I'm biased and I live there. But it's a cute community that's 75 miles north of Santa Barbara, but south of Santa Maria. It's outside the city of Santa Maria. And it can have reasonably priced housing there as well, and it's a neat old western town. The major employer for Santa Barbara County is agriculture, and there are large enterprises of farming, row crops, broccoli, lettuce, strawberries is the #1 crop, and the wine country is just fantastic. There are some fantastic recreational opportunities in Santa Barbara County. In fact, this is what drew me to Santa Barbara County. My wife and I used to go up to Pismo Beach and spend weekends in the summer up there, and then we found this opportunity to move here and found hiking, biking, road and mountain biking, surfing. The wine country is fantastic. There are loads of cultural events, great theater. There's cultural events at University of California at Santa Barbara and Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Downtown San Luis Obispo is nearby and is a neat college town. There's sport fishing off the coast. The Oceano Dunes is the last place in California where you can operate a car on the beach. In fact, we'll go to Pismo, get fish and chips, and then drive out there, and my son and I will go surf casting for an afternoon. And the beaches are fantastic. Here's some pictures around Santa Barbara County. It can be pricey to live in Santa Barbara County, and I wanted to talk about that for a second. And I'll show you a chart in just a minute. The median housing price in Santa Maria is $350, Solvang $732, San Ynez Valley $750, Goleta $786. Lompoc is the most reasonably priced at $316. Santa Barbara is just unreachable at the median house of $1,061,000, and Carpinteria at $777. Some employees commute from neighboring communities in either San Luis Obispo or Ventura counties, and here are the housing prices there. Jim, we're recording this, right? So people can come back and look at this later if they choose? Okay, thank you. Here's that chart so you can get an idea of what the median housing prices are. So 50% are above this and 50% are below this. And I got these from Zillow today. So to the extent Zillow is accurate, that's how current they are. So now I'm going to switch and talk about the court for a few minutes. So we have 8 facilities in Santa Barbara Superior Court spread out around the county. You saw the picture of the historic courthouse in downtown Santa Barbara. Near that building is the Santa Barbara Jury Assembly Building, and across the street is what was the old municipal court, which is now our primary criminal facility in the South County at the Figueroa Division. There's, in Goleta, there's the Santa Barbara Juvenile Court, which is a 1-courtroom juvenile facility. And then in Solvang, we have a part-time, we hear traffic there every other week. We've really pared back operations there and closed the clerk's office, but we continue to conduct traffic operations there twice a month. The city of Lompoc has a 2-courtroom courthouse, and Santa Maria is the major facility in the North County. And then in the Orchid area, just outside Santa Maria, we have a Santa Maria Juvenile Court. There are 20 judicial officers in our courts. In the historic courthouse, there are 2 criminal courts and 4 civil courts. Figueroa has 5 criminal courts and 1 small claims. In the AB 1058 program, the family support court is in there as well. The Santa Barbara facility is off of Hollister Avenue. In Santa Maria, there are 5 criminal courts and 3 civil courts. Lompoc has 2 courtrooms, and I talked about Solvang. The family support commissioner actually is the same judicial officer who moves between all three all these three facilities that you see on the screen. So I want to talk for a minute just about what the overall filings are, so you can get some point of reference for if you're currently in a court. You'll notice that this goes back to 08, 09, which is what the peak of the economic downfall. And you can see that we've had an 18.5% decline since then in total overall filings. Our filings in 13-14, which was at the time I created this presentation, the last fiscal year for which I had complete data, 103,000 filings. But the majority of those filings are minor offenses, which are traffic and infractions. And you can see that since that same period in 08, 09 to 14-15, we've had a 22% decline in those overall filings. So while we had 103,000 filings overall, you can see here that 70,000 of those filings were minor offenses. That's 70% of our overall filings. The remaining 30% you can see here. And there's been a decline in these filings as well, from 36,500 to 30,000, which is a 17% decline in filings. In fact, that decline in filings has helped us deal with some economic struggles that we've been enduring over the last several years. Felony filings are down as well, and I highlight this because this is post-Prop 47, where filings were recategorized. So a number of cases which were previously felonies are now categorized as misdemeanors, and you can see because of that there's been a 25% decline in our felony filings. You'd expect that there would be a corresponding increase in misdemeanors, but it's not as great. There's been a 16% increase in the misdemeanor category. So that's a quick snapshot of what's going on in our workload. What's not in there is a trend that I understand is happening nationwide and definitely in California. Over the last 10 years, we've seen a 50% decline in juvenile filings. Both our dependency tends to remain flat, but our delinquency has declined dramatically. The operating budget for the Santa Barbara Court is about $29 million a year. You'll see here that we, in 15-16, we had anticipated expenses of $29 million on revenue of $28.5 million. So we overspent by $480,000. You can't keep doing that, or you end up indicted. So the reason that's happening here is we had reserves that were committed to our implementation of the new case management system. We have some major financial concerns facing the court coming up. We're hearing rumors that the Child Support Commissioner funding may be reduced in the coming years, and then we're not seeing the same expected return on retirement investments as expected, and that may be a hit for our court as well. So it looks like we're not necessarily out of the woods yet, but you can see that we've come pretty close to matching our revenues to our expenses, and we have to make sure that we keep that margin close. So this chart is taken from a strategic planning initiative that we undertook at the beginning of last year, where we surveyed a large number of internal and external stakeholders. And you'll see that in this category, they can see the mouse, right? It's moving. Okay, so you can see in this category what the external users thought were the biggest challenge: declining budgets, inadequate resources, increasing crime levels, and an increased need for treatment courts. We have been seeing increasing needs in the area of mental health in the criminal side of things, and that's going on throughout the state as well. But the internal surveys for judges and staff were not the same. While the number one priority remained, or the biggest challenge was the declining budgets, efficient internal operations was the number two priority for internal users. And you'll see here now what's important to our organization is the use of technology. Those efficiencies, we believe, are going to emerge from an increased use of technology. That same survey also said, well, what would you like to see the court do more? And remote electronic access was the number one desire, both internal and external. And then timely resolution of cases and treatment courts came up again. The internal users identified self-help as the most desired improvements. And then facilities, improved facilities. And you're going to see we have some projects in those areas. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on mission, vision, and values, but you'll note that we took some time in our core values to create this acronym that is obviously creative. Compassionate comes up again, respectful, ethical, because we care about the employees in the organization and those people with whom we work and those we serve. And that's emerged as the top values in our organization. In our strategic planning process, we focused on 5 strategic focus areas. And I'm not going to go in depth on all of them. I think there are some 68 projects that, that's not 68, was it 28? Do you remember? 28 projects that emerged under each of these areas. Access and responsive services, and a lot of this tends to be focused on electronic access. Infrastructure, both within our technology world and in our physical plant throughout our courts. Case flow, workload, and resource management. We're emphasizing with our new case management system an ability to measure the work of the court, and we're interested in moving towards business intelligence software to use analytics more thoroughly to manage our workload and make sure our limited resources are applied where they need to be. Workforce development and satisfaction. How do we encourage our employees to grow and make sure that they're satisfied in working for the court? And then engaging our justice partners and our community. So that document itself, the strategic plan, lists a whole bunch of things, but I thought it might be important, and I was cogitating on this morning. Well, what are those things that, you know, on my commute home, I'm making a checklist in my mind that are important. And many of these line up with the strategic plan, but sometimes things emerge outside of that planning process that need to be added to the list. And the top thing that our organization has identified is completing the phase 2 implementation of our new case management system. And we're scheduled to go live July 17th. In fact, January. Did I say July? I wish it was 6 months from now. Maybe not. We need to get this going. So January 17th. In fact, we have a management conference call every 2 weeks, and then we check in with the project managers every week on this implementation. And we're still slated for a go live January 17th. Thank you. We finished phase 1, which was civil, family law, and probate, and phase 2 is criminal, traffic, and juvenile. Included in there is a desire to give online access to court records. And earlier today, we conducted a webinar with our justice partners showing them how they could get that access. We're opening up portal access to case records and documents to our justice partners on January 17th, and we're piloting with private attorneys and law firms in the community. We're setting that up now. Some of you may have attended the eCourts conference in Las Vegas last week. One of my focuses was looking at replacing our jury management software. That's going to be a priority in the coming year. The area of pretrial and bail reform is spreading across the nation, and it's not different for us here in Santa Barbara County. And we've identified a need to measure more effectively our use of risk assessment instruments, and we're going to be looking at supervised pretrial release, which means we're going to need a means of recording what those terms and conditions are, which means we're going to need to get some new software solution to keep track of that. Odyssey offers a solution. I'm not necessarily convinced it's the one we're going to use, but it does integrate, and there are others. We have some construction projects. You see that I earlier mentioned infrastructure. Whenever we remodel things or build things, we forget to tell IT. And then later we call them up and say, oh my gosh, we're going to need all these data jacks put someplace. But with our strategic planning process, we've addressed that. And I just wanted to quickly go through some of those projects. We're relocating the juvenile court in Santa Barbara to a underutilized courtroom in the jury assembly building. We're remodeling a jury assembly building in Santa Maria. Resurfacing the parking lot, I hope, doesn't affect the IT people unless they dig too deep and cut your fiber. And then we're among those courts who are supposed to be receiving new facilities under the immediate and critical needs funds, but we're supposed to get a new criminal courts building in Santa Barbara. Some of you have heard about the Innovations Grant opportunities that came with the governor's budget from last year. Our grant request that went in was to generate instant orders after hearing using Surface Pro's tablets and law student interns to generate these orders after hearing in response to Senator Hannibal Jackson's bill, SB 917. Senator Jackson is our local senator, but importantly, she chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee and she's on the State Judicial Council. So we're hoping that this project resonates with those who are reviewing the grant. And if they do, that project would start in July. I mentioned security earlier, and it's not just technology security, but access control systems are important to our incoming presiding judge, and those reside on the court's network now. These are the card reader devices that we have on some facilities. We're hoping to move to all facilities. That's a big project, and integrate it with our existing systems. We're hoping to replace our obsolete security cameras. It's funny. We look at security cameras and you can't make out somebody's face, but if you go on Google Earth, you can look at people in your backyard. Seems to me we could get better security cameras, and we're hoping to install new ones to replace those, and in those courts without them, put in new ones. And then that large courthouse does not have weapons screening on the perimeter. We're working with the county to set up a plan to provide weapons screening, and towards that end, we've already installed data drops at each place because the new versions of the magnetometers are actually networkable, so that you can troubleshoot them remotely and also do reporting on monitor counts of how many people go through those. And then finally, we're hoping to enclose the Santa Maria Court campus entirely to secure the perimeter and put up weapons screening there. So that's it. That's a lot of information I covered inside of 28 minutes and 29 seconds, apparently. I don't know if we're going to switch over now to Stephanie. We're going to take questions at the end. Is that right? Or we haven't had any that have come up along the way, have we?
Yeah, if anyone does have a question, you can use the chat bar that's on go to webinar and send us in a question. I do see a question there about physical security and IT function, and it is to a certain extent, and I'll cover that in my presentation after the HR presentation.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so much of what we do on our physical security resides on your network.
Yes, it does nowadays, yeah.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Stephanie Robbins. I'm the HR manager for the Superior Court. I'm just going to briefly cover the position, process, and benefits. This position reports to the Court Executive Officer, Daryl Parker, whom you've heard speaking for a while. It does have...
Was that an editorial?
It does have county-wide responsibility, so all of those locations that you saw before do fall under your level of responsibility, and you will be expected to travel between them. It oversees all of the functions of the IT department, so planning and goal setting, project management, budget, and staffing. And it is a member of the management team and works closely with all the members of the management team, which include the Chief Financial Officer, HR Manager, and the 5 operational managers. Jim Brock will be presenting more information on the position later, so I'm just going to leave it at this higher level. The hiring process, you can submit your application online at the web, oops, I'm sorry. How did I do that? I don't have my glasses on. As you can see, there is a very collegial atmosphere between the management staff here. So you can submit your application online at the website here. If you go to sbcourts.org, you can get there through the HR link. Attach any relevant information. It's not required, but does help us if you attach a resume, any training certificates, letters of reference, other information that you might have. You can, if you've already submitted your application online, you can still go in and update that or add or attach new documents. The applications will be reviewed for minimum qualifications to make sure they meet those qualifications listed on the job bulletin. And then a panel will review the applications and invite selected people for interviews. And the finalists will be invited back within the next day or two after the interview to make a presentation to the management team. Once that is done, we hope to make a quick decision and do background checks on the candidate that is selected. Benefits, we do have a nice benefit package here. The benefits listed here are employer paid benefits. The job bulletin doesn't allow us very well to add all of the compensation that is there, so I did want to point out that we do have a $311.54 biweekly allowance, which adds an additional $8,000 or $8,100 to your salary, as well as a 0.25% of additional pay that is a little difficult to explain why it is there, but it is there, and that adds just a few $100s to your pay. We have the usual medical and dental benefits. The employee portion of the medical premiums are paid for by the court. We offer a high deductible health plan and as well as an exclusive provider organization. If you are in the high deductible health plan, we will also contribute $900 to a healthcare savings account for you. The dental, you have your choice of a preferred provider organization or an HMO. There is $20,000 worth of life insurance, long-term disability insurance, an employee assistance program, vacation, which starts at 12 days per year. You accrue 12 days in your first year and goes up to 25 days per year once you hit 15 years of service. If you do have prior public service that you have not been separated from for longer than 6 months, we will count those years of service towards your vacation accrual date. So you may come in at more than 12 days.
Because we're in 1937 Reciprocity Act County, right?
Yes, that doesn't.
For return.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jim.
That is separate. Sick leave, there are 12 days a year. There are the 13 court holidays. We do also give you one floating holiday, and at 10 years of service, there's an additional floating holiday. And you are eligible for administrative leave of 104 hours per year. We also have voluntary benefits. Well, retirement is not voluntary, but you pay a portion of it and the court pays a portion of it. The current plan is the PEPRA plan, 2% at 62. We do have reciprocity with most of the retirement systems in California, which means that you don't lose the benefit of your retirement if you move from one system to another. We also have offer vision insurance, a healthcare advocacy program. You can purchase additional life insurance. There is a guaranteed issue when you are hired of $150,000 for you and $50,000 for your spouse, $10,000 as well for your children. You can purchase additional accident, death, and dismemberment insurance, accident insurance, critical illness. We have flexible spending accounts for health, dependent, parking, and transit. And we do also offer a 457 deferred compensation plan, both traditional and Roth options. You can find out more about our benefits on our website, on the court website, and feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Jim Brock, I will turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Stephanie. It'll just take a minute and we'll start the next PowerPoint. Thanks for those questions about the org chart for the IT division, and I will be covering that in my presentation. I want to thank everyone for joining today. It's a great opportunity for an IT professional to be part of an exciting, making a difference team. One of the things about working in the courts is you are making an impact on your community, and especially in IT, in offering that as a tool for the court to process its work. And we're just queuing up the other PowerPoint presentation. It'll be just 1 second.
So Jim, I was at that eCourt conference in Las Vegas where they had a bunch of college students who were seniors and already have programming jobs at major software places. And they said their preference for working for the public is just that. It's that they can build an app that does something special, or they can do something more meaningful. So I appreciate your comments about doing something for the community that's meaningful.
Sure, and the other thing about IT, I'm sure you're all in the IT business, otherwise you wouldn't be interested in this position, but it is so dynamic. It is never boring. Some days I do wish for a boring day, but it is so dynamic, and I am very lucky to work with such a great team, both at the management level and at the staff level. We have not had a lot of turnover in our IT division. Someone was asking about the org chart. This may be a little bit difficult to see. I'm going to go through it real quick. I'm sorry, the font should be bigger and bolded, but I am the IT director, and I'm going to go ahead and build this completely out so you can see. I'll talk about each of these positions just briefly, but basically I have 3 supervisor level, what I call the network admins, that have, all 3 of them have been with the court for a number of years now. And in addition to being network admins and dealing with so many things, telecom, network, to all kinds of different types of systems that I'll get into in a minute. Each of them have their own specialty, like our IT supervisor, network admin in North County in Santa Maria is our infrastructure lead. He's also an exchange administrator. And in South County, very similar to that, she has responsibility over the Santa Barbara data center and also is an exchange admin and a network admin. In the center there is a CMS project manager that has been working the last, I don't know, about 3 years on the case management system. You will see that there are 2 vacancies there, and they've been long-term vacancies. The court has been very conservative, as you saw from the previous slides about expenses versus revenue, in being fiscally prudent and not overspending. Unfortunately, in order to meet our current budgets, we have had to have a couple of positions vacant. So right now we're at 11.5 FTEs with 2 long-term vacancies. IT director, which is myself right now, based in Santa Barbara but has countywide responsibility. Travel to Santa Maria is expected. Some of this is repeating what the other slides had. I talked about the project manager for our case management implementation. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And I did talk about the 2. We use former County of Santa Barbara job titles here, so we really haven't updated those, but I think that the area of responsibility shows what they actually do, which is the network admin, exchange admin, infrastructure, supervision of the IT staff, whether it be North or South County. We have, as you can see, I've bolded the number of people that are currently committed to the case management system team. I'll talk a little bit about the case management system in a minute, but that is job 1 for us right now. In addition to keeping the lights on a daily basis and keep things running, it's very important that we have a successful implementation of the Tyler case manager system. And as Daryl mentioned, we're up with the civil side, and very shortly we'll be up with criminal traffic and juvenile. A few of the other positions, one is labeled as a Systems and Programming Analyst. She is a part-time position and provides SQL support, application support, and works on Enterprise Custom Reports, which is the tool for the Tyler Case Management System. We have a computer system specialist who's our webmaster who does wonderful things with our website. Intranet has been working with the CMS team on portal and integrations, whether they be with the Department of Child Support Service, collections, warrants. She does great support all the way around, and also does some graphic design for us. We have two computer system specialists, which are basically help desk technicians, one in Santa Maria and one in Santa Barbara. They do the desktop support, software, hardware, obviously the first line of triage of any problem that comes in and takes care of escalation. We have a computer systems specialist based in North County who's our voice over IP phone specialist. She also helps immensely on the help desk and with desktop support with our closed circuit TV systems and WriteFax, which is an electronic fax system. Another computer system specialist on the CMS team is responsible for GIPSIS, which is the Judicial Branch Statistical Information System, reporting to the state. Also DOJ interfaces, financial and collections reporting, and also does Enterprise Custom Reports. Next, we have another computer system specialist that's on the CMS team that does application support, documentation, training, CLETS, and she does much more than that. She really helps with business process too. She has a good amount of experience with the operational side of the house and how to apply that to technology. And again, we have the two longer-term vacancies. I don't know if you're able to see this. This is just an A to V, doesn't cover everything, but kind of the areas of responsibility, and I believe that was one of the questions. So access control systems, which Daryl mentioned, audio-video support, whether that be video conferencing, digital signage, courtroom PA system, courtroom evidence presentation, you name it. Obviously, the CMS interfaces, electronic warrants, law and justice access, that was touched on earlier. CCTV, video surveillance, first level of troubleshooting and support, extraction of surveillance footage. And we have three disparate systems at different sites that we are the first level of support to. Obviously, there are support agreements at level 2 once we do the initial triage. Also in there is duress alarm support. It's a wireless duress alarm system that we maintain. Electronic recording, we use a product called For the Record in the courtrooms. First level of support for a number of specialized applications, whether that be DMV Gateway, our local police department's general utility switch, which is the access to CLETS and to our county's jail management system, and other things that you'd expect in a trial court, like hot docs, jury instruction selection. And those are only a few. Information security. We have security, event and incident management, as well as a number of other tools and probes to help us with security. IT equipment and supplies management from procurement to end-of-life liquidation. Basically, we're responsible for it all. IT support for other business units like the grand jury, pretrial services, and legal resource centers. Legal resource centers are operated by legal aid in our county under a grant and supervised by the court. So we do provide some IT support to them. We do have multifunction printing and copiers throughout the organization. Networking, we're responsible for all layers of modern computer networking, including Cisco routers, switches, wireless, remote access, you name it. We are a Cisco shop. We do planning and research. We do specialized training, strategic planning, telecommunications, Superior Courts sites with the county, with the police department, with DMV, with the California Courts Technology Center, even Dish Network for our Judicial Council TV. We're responsible for the phone PRIs and trunk lines and our ShoreTel voice over IP phone system. And obviously we deal with a number of vendors and support organizations, and we manage those relations. Again, if I need to emphasize that Odyssey Case Manager implementation is like job one after we keep the lights on. We've made some great progress in a relatively short period of time. In March of 2015, we went live with the civil cases. Shortly thereafter, we provided kiosk in the courthouse, access to the case data, and viewing of documents, basically trying to set up a self-help kiosk. After that, we opened up a web portal so that for those cases that can be viewed on the web, folks can take a look at case data. Next, we started an e-filing, electronic filing pilot. We did that with a number of law firms that agreed to be our pilot firms. Shortly after that, we started permissive e-filing. And then shortly after that, we started with the Department of Child Support e-filing. That's important. That's a component of our family law cases that really helped in reducing the amount of paper that we take in over the counter. Last January, we went mandatory with electronic filing for civil case types. And again, that really helped. Instead of our staff doing the scanning of documents and then importing them into our case management system, that was done by the litigant or the litigant attorney. Moving on to last April, May, we made documents available to Department of Child Support Services via the portal. And over there is our January 17, 2017 go live for criminal traffic and juvenile. You'll see that there's a period of time that we've prepared, we've trained the staff and put a lot of effort to make sure that this is a successful go live. Daryl spoke a bit about strategic planning. These are the strategic planning initiatives in the current year that are under the umbrella of information technology. Obviously, priority one is the CMS, case management system. Number two is providing justice partner access to the CMS and data integration. Again, we've already made some great strides in that. Three is somewhat related to that, but that's provide electronic access to court records, and specifically a goal around that would be for attorneys of record in civil matters. Number four is improve IVR, IWR, and we've actually made some decisions on that as far as taking calls internally and using the Odyssey portal for payments on the web. Next is infrastructure improvements. Mr. Parker mentioned those. A number of those improvements include a tech refresh, moving to Office 365. We're not there yet, but we're making the preliminary plans to get there. And building out a disaster recovery site at our secondary communications site. Next is identifying the top priorities and highest need for website improvements. So we have a committee together working on that, and we're developing a survey to send out to the various parties that might visit our website and have them give us some feedback. We also want the feedback from our court employees and business partners. Next is providing orders after hearing that you mentioned, that you heard from Mr. Parker about, if not immediately, very shortly thereafter, providing orders after hearing to court users. Number 9 there is create and implement a social media plan, and we've completed that, and it's pending approval by the court's executive committee at this point. Mr. Parker talked about securing business intelligence software. So we've demonstrated, we've viewed a few of the business intelligence software offerings, and we're seeking some grant funding for that. And last on the IT-related items for this year is leverage technology and standardized work processes. And that is in progress. That often happens when you implement a new case management system. The managers get together, and this also includes judges, to say, how can we process cases better? How can we do this? How can we leverage technology as a tool to make the work process go smoother? A quick network overview. Mr. Parker touched on the various sites. This is our slowest site. It's a 3 meg IMA, which is by today's standards very slow. It is our juvenile court here in Santa Barbara. And our two primary sites, Santa Barbara and Santa Maria, are connected currently by a DS3, 45 megabits per second. We just gained approval to move that to a 500 megabits per second circuit. So we'll be implementing that very shortly. Some of our other sites, as you can see here, we take advantage of co-location with the county and use their network since they're already there, and they can provide 100 megabits per second throughput to those sites. Those include Lompoc, Solvang, and then in our North County, from Santa Maria to the Santa Maria Juvenile Facility, which is, as Daryl mentioned, in Orca. So that's a brief overview of the network. We are technologically current. We just completed the Judicial Branch Tech Refresh number 9, which basically identifies and to support Cisco routers and switches. We're getting ready for Tech Refresh 10, which is starting up in January. Most switches now are 10 gig from the access layer switches to the core at each particular site, as long as it doesn't traverse telecom. In Santa Barbara, we have a HP 3 PAR SAN, and in North County and Santa Maria, we have an HP P4500, and that's the site that we're building out for a future DR site. Once that increased communication link is in place, our plan is to back up over the network to Santa Maria. Site to site, telecom varies, as I mentioned, from a 3 meg IMA to 100 megs at the current time, and that'll jump to 500 meg once we get the new circuit in. Current inventory is 99 physical and virtual servers. We do use VMware with the Veeam as the backup, and the number of physical servers is declining. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's really down there. I know in our Santa Maria site, they have 1 remaining physical server. Everything else is virtualized. And then I don't know what our current FTE count is. Maybe Stephanie can let us know what that is.
Our current FTE, filled FTE, is 228.275.
So 228 employees, but we have 502 Windows 7 clients. How does that happen? That happens because of training rooms. That happens because judges that have bench computers, chamber computers, and perhaps a laptop as well. It expands exponentially. Talked about the new circuit between Santa Barbara and Santa Maria. The Judicial Council is sponsoring a new firewall replacement that we'll be working with very shortly. I mentioned again the Santa Maria DR site. Some of the priorities of the division: day-to-day support of operations. We are here to support operations, whether that be the courtroom, the back office, or other business units in the court. We are here to support them on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, Odyssey, the case management system, is number 2 right after operations day-to-day. We want to leverage the new 3 PAR SAN and migrate as many physical servers to virtual as possible. Again, the Santa Maria Disaster Recovery Site and Communications Upgrade, Office 365. We have the licensing in place. We're looking to get a consultant to help us with the exporting of data, as well as Active Directory Federation. I already mentioned the firewall upgrades and Tech Refresh 10 that are on the horizon. A little bit about the limitations of resources. So several key IT staff are assigned to the implementation of Odyssey, and that's been for the last couple of years. And that will likely continue because that is a huge project and we need to appropriately support it. The other thing that has kind of changed over the years is the need for more specialized IT skill sets. Infrastructure expert, we have a need to build those particular skills with more coursework, things like that. Same thing with SQL. We need a person with strong DBA skills. Web development and scripting continues to expand, and we need those skill sets. We do have some physical site limitations. Our data centers and IDFs need improvements, whether it be physical security, HVAC, fire suppression, etc. Mr. Parker mentioned the new building that is planned. Unfortunately, it's been delayed, and we're hoping that when that new facility is built, that a new data center for South County, for Santa Barbara, which is basically the larger of the two, is incorporated into that new building. Challenges. So IT is competing with other priorities for funding for staff and for projects. That's nothing new. That happens at all courts. The skill sets, like I mentioned, are changing. In-service training needs to be emphasized, and the role of IT is greatly expanded to include related devices, whether that be access control, video surveillance, duress alarms, mobile devices, etc. Questions. So that's basically an overview of the IT division of who we are and what we do. General questions about this opportunity can be submitted now using the GoToWebinar chat function if you'd like to, and we'll go back through there. And before I do that, there's one other difference I want to point out from the county IT manager position. In the court IT director position, you are responsible for all IT, whether that be telecom, the internet, networking equipment, software, backup recovery, security, phones, cabling, video surveillance, duress alarms, etc. For some of our county partners, there's an internal IT group that handles most of those types of things. So,
Jim, while you were talking, I made a couple notes I just want to add. And Stephanie made a comment about travel around the county is expected, but the IT director is also expected to travel to meetings throughout California because there are often these forums in Sacramento and San Francisco, but they can be hosted at other courts in California as well. And then the vendor, Tyler, holds an executive forum each year, and it moves around the U.S. So last time I went, it was in Colorado. I think it was in Colorado again this year? Utah this year.
Park City, Utah.
Right. And then I am a fan of the National Center for State Courts, and they hold, is it annually or every 2 years, they have an e-courts conference. This one most recently was in Vegas.
I believe it's every 2 years, and it's opposite of the Court Technology Conference.
Okay.
That is every 2 years.
So there is other travel expected from this position. In addition, you talked about areas that you needed development, and I have a real interest in business intelligence software and measuring the work of the court against our new database. And the two of the products I've been looking at are Tableau and Burst. And we're going to need not just a business analyst, but we're going to need IT support in that area as well. And I haven't fully developed that whole concept yet, but it's important to put on the radar screen.
So I'm just going to go down and see if we have missed anything. So I apologize that we have so many questions at this point. Physical security and IT function. Yes, to a certain extent. The access control systems, the wireless duress alarms, those types of systems we get involved in. Daryl mentioned the magnetometers. The newer models have the ability to be networked and could be controlled and run reports So yeah, physical security has some IT functions. I don't have supervisory role, but more of a support role for those. I did share the org chart, so hopefully that question's answered. What does a day look like? Wow, that's really hard to describe. Like I mentioned, it can be quite dynamic. It could be attending a statewide meeting of fellow CIOs or IT directors to discuss a case management product. It could be a day that we have our management meeting where we work as the management team to discuss problems and come up with solutions. So it's just wide variety. It's very dynamic. Are your systems fully customized? Well, some are.
Tyler's off the shelf.
Well, our case management system, as Mr. Parker indicated, which is Tyler Odyssey Case Manager, so it is commercial off-the-shelf software, but a big portion of that is configuration. So you have all these different options. So our team, how long has our team for phase 2 been working on the configuration, the testing, to make sure that it works with our business process? It's been over a year.
Yeah, it's certainly over a year.
So they're not customized. I mean, it's not custom code. We're not doing a lot of coding, but configurability is basically what we use. Do we have a PM or PMO responsible for IT projects? We currently have a project manager who's assigned to the case management system, and dedicated resources of both ops and IT staff are on that case management system. There was a PMO that was set up at our Solvang location, but at this stage of the game, we've just finished end-user training, so people are generally at the 2 primary sites of Santa Barbara or Santa Maria. Do we have a process dashboard to communicate project status? We don't, and the way I'm doing portfolio management right now is a monthly report that I submit to our executive board going over the project status, etc. We also have a number of strategic planning initiatives that Mr. Parker talked about that we're having continued meetings on, and we have a strategic planning coordinator who takes care of the communications of that. So basically, we're using reporting rather than a process or a dashboard. One thing that I failed to mention is a strong interest in SharePoint and what that can bring to our organization. We just haven't had the time and the development staff to be able to implement that as of yet. Any work being done by vendors? A little. Obviously, our case management system, jury management system have vendors, so they do provide support for some functions. Are court records scanned documents or real data? That's a good question, and both. When a document is electronically filed, so we're capturing data, but we're also capturing a PDF of the actual document. So it's both. The same thing will occur with our integration. For example, if the DA files a complaint, we'll have a PDF document, but we'll also have the metadata that will pre-populate our case management system. What is the storage? It's mostly SAN at this point, HP SAN, as I mentioned, the 3-part in Santa Barbara, P4500 in Santa Maria. Let me see. Microsoft licensing via an enterprise enrollment. It is for clients. Typically for the server level, we've bought off the select contract. But all of our clients are covered under an enterprise enrollment. What does the future hold for me? I don't know. Retirement after 30 years with the Superior Court and 5 years with our local Sheriff's Department. So, I mean, it's a great place to work. It's a great place to live. I can't say more about the organization. It's been fantastic. That's enough about me.
Yeah, Jim, this is a recruitment to fill your position. People who are recruiting you can't use can't hijack our our webinar.
Are master agreements the state has mandates, or are they more like pricing guidelines? That's an excellent question. We have a procurement specialist, and we can leverage state master agreements, judicial branch master agreements. We can even leverage GSA Schedule 70 IT agreements. I work closely with our procurement specialist on the proper methodology of procuring. Obviously, we're looking for the best price and best value. So we look to those types of contracts that we can leverage first. If not, we have the ability to go out, request for a proposal, and do that ourselves.
So increasingly, we're seeing other courts, when they go to RFP on any product that might be used by another court, they're including a piggyback clause so that other courts can use that without having to go through the RFP process, which can be time-consuming.
Right. One question here is about budget challenges. Do you have the option to use more outside contractors to move cost from capital to operational? That's more of a policy and a fiscal discussion that the IT director would need to have with our CEO and perhaps with our CFO too. There are times when it's best to use an outside contractor. There are also, downsides. There's not the knowledge transfer, and there's just different ways of doing it. Do I have a couple of contractors? Yes. Have we hired contractors from time to time? Yes. We'll likely hire an outside firm to help us with the Office 365 migration. They'll help us with Active Directory for us, as well as the exporting of data and importing it into the cloud.
And increasingly, I'm a fan of outside contractors if they're competent and capable, because then it's not an ongoing expense, especially if I just need a one-time startup and I don't need to build that into the team. It's a good question because it recognizes our financial challenges.
Is Tyler implemented locally or SaaS? We are a local implementation. Tyler has a guideline on what size of organization would be best to be a SaaS or in the cloud environment. And we're local. The database is physical, and most of the helper servers are virtual. So I think we have 3 physical servers, and all the rest are virtualized. I hope that answered the question. Are there any more questions at this current time? Has your case management system created unforeseen challenges, such as integration issues?
Do you know one that hasn't?
Yeah. In my career, I have seen so many case management systems, but they are challenges, whether it be a financial challenge, a learning curve, working with other agencies that may not have the same time frame, working with a state agency like Department of Child Support Services that has a local child support agency as well, working with other state agencies like DMV, DOJ, and trying to coordinate all of that. Yeah, a lot of challenges. Integration, we have, again, taken a rather conservative approach with integrations. We've completed phase 1, the civil case types. We have the integration with DCSS. We're going up with the phase 2 case types. We have the integration with sheriff warrants. A number of the integrations for criminal traffic will be, I hate to say it, but phase 3. It'll be the next, after we get up, we get stable, we will be working on those other integrations with district attorney, public defender, probation, any of those allied criminal justice agencies. We also will need to go back and review the civil implementation and refine that. I hate to use this term, but
continuous
improvement. We're marching forward. How do we collaborate with other court systems? That's a good question. We discussed that a little bit. I am a member of the Court IT Management Forum. We meet quarterly around the state. We talk about projects. We talk about upcoming either events or activities. That Court IT Management Forum group actually started the current RFP process for case management systems. And they've gained, I don't want to say notoriety, they've been recognized by the branch, by the judicial branch now, and we're being consulted a lot more on branch initiatives than we have in the past. We also have what Daryl mentioned was, we used to call it KTUG, but it's CATUG. It's California Tyler User Group. And those meetings are typically quarterly, and they happen at different levels, but they're user groups. And there are a number of work streams. I think there's a top 5 work streams to help the vendor improve the software. This particular software is being rolled out in 25 courts statewide. So it's a big deal for the state of California. I think it represents about 80% of the population. Firewall security, handled by staff or vendor. It's shared under the Judicial Council and under the state. We use the CalNet process, which the contract is held by AT&T. So AT&T assists us with firewall and security. We also have another few vendors that help us, like security on demand. What do you appreciate most about the culture there? I think the diversity. If you come to Santa Barbara, it can be very cosmopolitan. You'll go out on State Street and hear any number of foreign languages. There are a lot of visitors. You can go to Santa Maria and feel, even though it's the largest city in our county at this point, over 100,000, kind of a hometown folksiness type of feel. You can go to Solvang and think you're in a foreign country. And each of our communities are just a little bit different. So we have diversity all around. What is the goal of your social media projects listed earlier? Basically, we've been managing social media as a communication tool, and we wanted to put a policy behind it and kind of put some guidelines so that those persons that would tweet or post something to Facebook knew what the guidelines are. And we wanted the executive management as well as the judges to also understand what our policy parameters are. And it was an excellent exercise. We did surveys of other California trial courts of how they're using social media. We also looked at the National Court PIOs group did a survey, and that provided a lot of information for our policy.
Because you can get controversial decisions that come down from the bench, and we don't want to engage in a debate over social media with the public. Those need to remain, those decisions need to stand on their own in order to bolster the independence of the judiciary. And so we're trying to build those rules around it prior to those things coming up, so that we can contain any efforts to use social media in a manner that could actually be damaging to the integrity of the court.
Well said. Are there any more questions? Let's see here. What is? How do you measure success as far as the social media? That's a good question, because my experience so far has been that those persons that subscribe to our channels on the various social media often tend to be members of the media, law and justice partners, attorneys, or court staff. So it is kind of difficult. It is one of many communication methods. It's not the end all. We have to remember that segment of our community that is not plugged into social media, and make sure that we make reasonable accommodations to those folks that are not. Any other questions? Mr. Parker, any parting words?
No, I think you did a really nice job, Stephanie and Jim. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this. I appreciate all of those who've been able to attend, and we got some really good questions. So If there's nothing else, I think we could sign off.
Again, thank you all very much, and remember that applications are due on the 6th of January.
Yes, and any questions that you have, you can direct to hr@sbcourts.org.
Thank you for your interest.